Are you ready to double your real estate sales and grow your business like never before? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Real Estate Matters, hosted by Matt Curtis, leader of the #1 real estate team in Alabama for the last 6 years. With over 8,000 homes sold and more than 4,000 five-star reviews, Matt's proven strategies speak for themselves. Ready to double your sales with expert strategies? Let's dive in. This is Real Estate Matters. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Matters podcast. I'm your host, Clark Dunn, here with Matt Curtis at Matt Curtis Real Estate.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And, we're going to talk about winning the day today. Every day, there's so many times people say, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. What's really about today? And so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm excited. So to get us started, what does your daily routine look like and how does it set you up for success?
Yeah. So, for me, it's kind of like a pregame. If you're a professional athlete, everybody goes through these routines to get themselves ready for the day. And if I don't do my pregame, my day is shot. Like I don't have the energy level. I don't drink coffee. I'm actually allergic to caffeine, so it messes up my stomach. So I can't drink coffee, and so I can't be energized that way. And so what energizes me, what fuels me for my day is number one is I get up, I do my devotion. That's like the number one important thing for me to do. Number two is I got to physically get moving. Fortunately, I'm not in the sales job where I'm out and about showing homes all day anymore. I've got a lot of desk work. And so for me to be able to stay focused throughout the day, I've got to work out and get myself energized, get the dopamines moving so that I can productively do my job every single day.
And so as you're looking at kind of building your calendar, what are some of the biggest benefits in having an ideal calendar in place so that things like that, like getting up and having that morning routine being the same and having these things that hey, on Tuesdays I do this and on Thursdays I do this. How important is that?
Well, it's so critical to me. There's times of growth that you get really, really busy and you start to burn out and you start to do too much. And so whenever I get to that point, I go back and I look at my ideal calendar. Like, all right, so we all have a to-do list and it just keeps going and going and going. But ultimately, we're human beings. There's only 24 hours in a day. There's only so much that we can do. And so you also have to create kind of that companion stop doing list. So what things can I get off of my plate? Maybe somebody else, they have to be done. Maybe somebody else can do them, or maybe they're just a waste of time and I'll need to do them at all. So that's one thing that I look at, but then I look at my calendar. I'm like, all right, how can I do these things more efficiently? How can I batch some of my stuff? And so, give you an example, we're creating a lot of content. We do monthly or weekly emails to our clients. We do recruiting emails. We do just different video throughout the week and, write articles for newspapers and all this different stuff. And it was just like, all right, an hour here, 2 hours here, an hour there. I was like, well, what if I combined all that? I'm fresh Monday morning, creative wise. What if I just knocked all that out in a Monday morning? And that really freed up a lot of time throughout the rest of the week. And so, that's just an example, but basically having that ideal calendar gives you something to shoot off of or plan off of. A lot of agents, they wing it. Hey, I'm creative. Like, hey, you want to go show a house? Yeah, I'll go show a house. But they're not always getting the most important things done. We have this amazing agent that works with us, Gina Sharp. She's kind of like a ninja. And she has just been so successful, worked web leads and now working a lot of past clients, still works web leads. But she found a system and a process early on for her. And a lot of agents will come to her and say, she's an agent that's sold hundreds of homes, has sold over 80 homes in a year. And agents will come to her and ask her, like, how have you been so successful? She's like, number one thing is I make sure I get my prospecting in. And so when you create this ideal calendar, you got to put the most important things first. Like, hey, I got to make sure I'm prospecting every single day. And sometimes there might be an emergency coming up and you have to move things around. But it gives you a framework of like, hey, here's what winning looks like. And you've kind of premeditated, you've like already thought about like, hey, here's how my week's going to go, versus, having to use all those calories every day. Like, hey, what do I need to do today? When am I going to get this done? It's like, one of the reasons I eat pretty much the same breakfast every day. And, the less that and wear kind of pretty much the same clothes, you don't have to think, as less you have to think about, that frees up your mind and your calories to spend towards something that is actually, you need to be creative and moving the needle on.
Yeah. And I think, setting that ideal work week is very important when you're a real estate agent, because you don't have consistency. Like you could, be jumping from one thing to another, but if you're able to kind of pre-plan, what does it look like to be successful each week? And then, maybe even spending that Sunday afternoons to like plan out like, hey, what things do I need to put in certain spots this week for me to be the most successful? Because like you said, it does change. It could change on a week-to-week basis, but having that framework is super important.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, oh no, I'm creative, I can never do that. I'm not, that would be too restrictive for me. Well, here's the thing is discipline actually equals freedom. Once you have that discipline scheduled, it actually frees you up to do so much more, and it frees you up to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the rock analogy and how it applies to the time management and priorities?
Yeah, that's kind of the analogy that I give all of our agents when we're working on like an ideal schedule is, if you have this cup essentially, and you start to fill it up, fill it up with sand. You put it all, sand in there, and you try to put a rock in there. There's no room for it. Or you have a bunch of small rocks and you try to fit a big rock in, there's no room. But if you put things in the right order, the big rocks, like, for me, like starting my day, my devotion, my workout, those are big rocks. My kids, my family, my wife, putting those big rocks in there, my big rocks of my business, if it's prospecting or whatever it might be, showings, going on appointments. And then you got like, smaller rocks. You have all those rocks that are in there. Now the smaller rocks will kind of find their way in. And then you start to fill it up with little pebbles, like the minutia of life that just needs to get done. Oh, I need to get an oil change. I got to get gas, all those different things. You start to find the time, and then you can fill it up with sand, and the sand again kind of finds its way in. But you had your priorities right. If you let the minutia of life control your day, you're never going to find the time for the real big rocks, the things that are going to make an impact.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when you hit those big rocks first, it gives you sort of that momentum and that push of energy to allow you to do much more than what you thought you were going to do that day. Like if you're able to start your day with those big rocks, to begin, it might be tough, but once you get that task complete, I mean, the sky's the limit at that point. It feels like anything you do that day is possible because you got that done.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, hey, here's what it's going to take to win this day, these 2 or 3 things. It's not like when you have this big to-do list and you're like, oh, I felt accomplished by doing all this minutia. Well, you didn't accomplish anything. Like your to-do list needs to be like, hey, these are the 2 or 3 things that if I do this today, I'm successful. And even if I don't get all this other stuff done, it's okay.
Yeah. And so if someone's listening, what would be Matt's 1 or 2 things that are, if a real estate agent does this every single day, they will grow their business, they will move the needle and be successful?
Yeah, they've got a prospect. One big thing is you can look at it 1 or 2 ways. What is an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Well, if you get an appointment a day, you're going to be okay. If you prospect 5 days a week, you get 5 appointments every single week. You meet with 5 clients during the week, 20 clients during the month. You're going to be successful. And so, that's continue to prospect. It might be like, hey, your first call, you get an appointment, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to keep calling. Maybe I get 2 or 3 today. Or you might be on, your 100th prospect that you called, and you're still at 0. Are you going to make 101? Are you going to keep doing that until you get an appointment? So that's a really good framework. Another framework that agents can look at is, sometimes it's going to take a time to build up a pipeline. And so having real estate conversations. And so really good metric. It's really hard to do, but having 10 conversations a day, if you talk to 10 people in a day, every single day, 5 days a week, about real estate, you're going to build up a pipeline and you're going to be successful. The problem is a lot of agents, they'll make 10 phone calls and get a hold of one person. And, that's not enough to really build enough momentum to be successful.
And so as we kind of wrap up this conversation, what would be that one piece of advice that maybe you would give a real estate agent that's just started? So it's a new real estate agent that has just started in their career. What would be a piece of advice you'd give them? Versus, I feel like the advice might change if you give to someone that's been in the career a little bit longer. So what would your piece of advice be for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a combination of things. Like, first, you got to know what your why is. It's got to be big enough that you're willing to make phone calls and do things that might make you uncomfortable at first. And then number two is, like, as you make those calls, are you going to be enthusiastic? Or stand up, do the things that you can smile through the phone. And then number three is, like, we have a core value of take action. Like, for our agents, we can give them leads, we give them the support and the training and the admin support and everything that we provide for our agents. But if they don't bring that hunger, then we can't do it for them, right? So it's kind of like if you're driving down the road and you see a big boulder in the road, or it's like a lot of people just like, oh, it wasn't meant to be. I'm going to make a U-turn. I'm going to go somewhere else. Well, no, it's like, hey, can I go left? Can I go right? Do I need to go over it? I just need to blow the boulder up. Those are the people that are going to be successful in real estate. And so having that commitment, like, hey, I'm going to continue calling until I make that one appointment. I don't care if it takes me 30 minutes or if it takes me 4 hours. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and I think, you can't teach drive. And that's one thing that, like, if you're going in with this ambition, this drive to be successful, to grow, to have this why that's big enough that you are always striving to be successful, everything else kind of falls in place sometimes. But if you don't come in with that motto and that mindset, it's impossible for you, and even in the successful teams that you have in place, to teach that person to have ambition and have drive.
Yeah, and if somebody needs motivation every single day, like, that's exhausting. Like, you've got to be self-motivated. But one of the most discouraging things I have, like, we'll have different trainings and different things, maybe some new agents, and I'll give them a great motivational speech. I'm like, wow, these agents are really going to knock it out of the park today. And then you go back and you look at the calls and you're like, it's so disappointing. Like, they were so motivated. They were like, they bought into everything, but they didn't do it. And so at the end of the day, like, are you a doer? Will you put in the work?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this topic. I think it's something that as real estate agents are looking to grow into the career, maybe looking to seek the career out, thinking about their calendar, thinking about the one thing they can do today to move the needle is super important, because there is so many different things that take up our time outside of work, family life, just general things. So being able to prioritize and kind of see what it takes to be successful from your perspective is huge. But we'll be sure to have everything in the episode notes if anyone wants to find out more information.
Great.
That's a wrap for this episode of Real Estate Matters, helping you double your sales and build a thriving business. But real success is about impact. That's why Matt's team has built over 140 homes for families in Central America, changing lives beyond real estate. Loved what you heard? Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow agent. For more expert insights, visit mattcurtisrealestate.com or find us on social media @MattCurtisRealEstate. See you next time on Real Estate Matters.